Hello, friends. I'm Dr. K.V. Vijay Kumar, an advocate practicing in the High Court in Bangalore. Of late, there have been a lot of discussions among my clients, my friends, my social circle about diverse issues and the diverse laws in India. I would now like to have a brief, give you a little brief about the diverse laws in India and their impact on those who would like to go for a divorce. We have heard quite often that the divorce issues are growing and the divorce cases pending in the court have shot up exponentially, which means that the married couples are impatient. The married couples find that compatibility is not something they can cope up with, and they probably feel that each of them are two independent individuals, and therefore it is difficult for them to get along together. Marriage is an institution have been living together for years and decades. They have their own differences, but then that will not stop them from being part of a good family. Therefore, divorce is the last thing that should be in your mind. So think always about being together as a family. However, there are situations which develop wherein it may be very difficult for the two of the husband and wife to get along, and therefore they go for getting a divorce in the court of law. Divorce is normally being handled by the family courts. They have one in each district, and you shall not approach the concerned relevant family court in your jurisdiction to go for a divorce. However, before we actually enter into the gamut of law, let us see what are the normal situations wherein you get into this divorce and what happens when you go for a divorce. The pros and cons of a divorce is what you should learn first before you start knowing about the laws of divorce. Divorce actually divides the family, and if you have children, it's going to be a lifelong trauma for the children. It is not easy for the husband or the wife after the divorce. Though they may be two different individuals and no longer husband and wife, life is going to be a little difficult, and especially for the female because of the social stigma attached to a divorcee. We may think that we have to be forward looking and we have to be liberal and all this, but then the social stigma is something which you cannot erase off or wish away. It will always be there. It takes time, maybe decades, maybe centuries for that to get washed off, like how we see today in Western countries where divorce is no longer a big issue. You're a divorcee or a divorced male, then there's not going to be an issue for your life. But in India, it is. We're still growing. The liberalization of mind is yet to happen fully. So till then, we have to face the situation as it is in reality. Let me talk to you about certain divorce cases, examples, which probably will give you a brief idea about what divorce is going to be like. Filing a divorce is easy, but going through the proceedings is going to be difficult, traumatic, expensive, and time consuming. Don't ever dream that the divorce is going to happen in a jiffy. You need evidence just like in any other case, whatever you're accusing the others of. And you need to have a cogent evidence which is acceptable to the law. You may have evidence, but it is not acceptable in law. Then you have a really good problem, serious problem. So let us see what are the few instances of divorce cases and how it has gone through. I had a person known to me, acquaintance, and his son got married about approximately, I think, about 10 years ago. And after about a year or two, they came to know that the girl was not of a good character, and therefore they wanted to go for a divorce. It took 8 years, and they spent 15 lakhs for the divorce case, despite having what one could call the best hardcore evidence against the wife. So you must remember, what you feel is evidence may not be enough evidence in a court of law. You can't be impulsive when you go for a divorce. It has to be well thought out, discussed with the elders, discussed with your family and friends, and in fact, more discussion to be had with your spouse before you actually go for it. There's another case, and this, mind you, was almost about, let's say, 38 years ago. The case was filed about 38 years ago. It was decreed somewhere in the early 2000. I think it took about 20, 22 years for the case. It was still running, but then the husband and wife who were yet to be divorced felt they had enough. So they went for a out of court settlement. The boy had to shell out a huge amount of money and then get separated. They gave a mutual consent petition to the court and the case was decided accordingly. I have another case wherein, very recent, it's still in the court. This trial has not yet started. It's almost a year now since they have filed the case, and the wife has actually filed the case against the husband. In this instant case, the girl left the matrimonial house, came back to her mother at the instance of the mother. The boy had sent messages asking her to join him, but she refused. After some time, she stopped communicating. This is called desertion. And when the case was filed, though they had narrated to me several instances, and I had issued a notice to the boy about the instances that they had, in fact, narrated to me, finally, the case was given to somebody else for a divorce because they felt probably that the other advocate is cheaper, or maybe because he was handling a lot of divorce cases. Here, the petition filed before the court narrated only two instances. It said the boy has got an affair and he demanded dowry. In fact, the girl was shocked. She said, I never complained about these things. This never happened. But the advocate said, this is a convention. Don't worry. Otherwise, the case would not have been taken by the court, accepted by the court. And therefore, to make the court accept your petition, we have to create some situation where it is very serious according to the court. And then we'll bring up these issues later. This is a wrong approach. If the instances you narrated are not good enough for a divorce, then it is better for you to reconcile and stay together. That means the issues you raised are not serious enough to warrant divorce. The issue here is not that the spouse or the husband is harassing, but it is a question of ego. So the primary issue that comes up in a divorce is ego. I am bigger than you, I am greater than you, I am earning more than you, my family is better than yours. It's ego. We must understand that when we get married, two individuals are getting married, two individuals who have different types of likes, different habits, they come from different backgrounds, maybe different cultures, maybe different religions as well. So the more there is a difference, then you have a lot of things to be compatible with. There must be clear understanding on this before you really understand what marriage is. I've been happily married with my wife for the last 38 years. We never had any quarrel at all. I give her enough space to be herself. She gives me enough space to be myself. So the understanding that we are individuals with individual likes and dislikes and preferences, and we should respect each other, should be the motto when you enter into a marriage. You cannot think that what I think is what you should do. That is where ego comes. Ego is always bad for relationships, whether it's friendship or whether it's a spouse to spouse relationship or it is between a parent and a child, whatever. Ego is the one that spoils the relationship. So be careful about the ego aspects. Let's getting back to the divorce issue. What are the reasons for which divorce is normally considered possible? I will not use the word will be given. I will say where divorce is possible, because the outcome in a court case depends on so many issues. So what are the things for it is possible? Number one is adultery. What is adultery? Adultery is one of the spouses having a serious affair with somebody else and refusing to be a husband or a wife, as the case may be, to the other. Now, Supreme Court had diluted the criminal aspect of adultery, and recently they have told that Adultery is not a cognizable criminal offense, but it's a very valid reason for getting a divorce. So, what are the requirements for adultery? It is not enough if the girl says or the boy says, I saw, if the wife says, I saw my husband in a park with a female companion. I saw him going to a movie theater. I saw him coming out of a movie theater. I saw them having lunch together, breakfast together, dinner together, traveling together. Not good enough reason for an affair. The law's requirement, the judicial requirements are very, very different from our own perceptions. Our perception need not tally with or be compatible with the requirement of law. That is where the problems start. So, how will the law expect to be with you when you say that my husband is having an affair? In the eyes of law, an affair happens only when, number one, there is desertion. Desertion means the spouse leaves you and stays with somebody else in a different house, not visiting you or not communicating with you and not caring for your personal needs, does not send you money, does not help you out with things which normally a spouse would do. So the first and foremost is desertion. The next requirement is he must have left you and gone and stayed with the other person. This is very, very important. Stayed with the other person. The premises may be owned by the other person or maybe a rented one or whatever. They must be staying with them for a considerable amount of time. Let's say 6 months, 1 year. They have been staying there and they have not been living with the spouse, real spouse. This is called adultery in the eyes of law. If you can prove this, that the husband deserted, number one, the husband is living with somebody else, number two, and they've been living together for a considerable amount of time, like 6 months to 1 year or so forth, and they have not been communicating and they have not been taking up the responsibility of a spouse for the last period when you say that he was having an affair. That is affair. So affair and adultery are a very valid reason for divorce, common for both men and women. Okay, this doesn't mean that the wife cannot go away with somebody else. Doesn't mean that man cannot go with somebody else. Both are two individuals. They can probably prefer to live with somebody else, and this happens. So adultery happens when there is desertion, when somebody else is your spouse is living with somebody else for a considerable amount of time. So this is a very valid reason for divorce. Number two, demand for dowry, harassment, cruelty. You call it cruelty. Normally, adultery and cruelty are the two very popular reasons, most resorted to reasons in the case of divorce. So, what is cruelty? Cruelty is hurting somebody physically, hurting somebody emotionally, hurting somebody mentally, hurting somebody psychologically. Cruelty has got so many formats. You need not have beaten her up, but you could have been creating a situation in her mind psychologically. She's scared. That is again cruelty. Beating up, of course, definitely is a category for divorce. But what is emotionally? You're not talking to her. You're asking the children not to be mingled with her. You are asking the children not to talk to her. You are not allowing her to go and meet her parents. You are not allowing her parents to come and meet her. You have taken away her mobile phone. You are locking her up inside the house. All this is some kind of either emotional hurt, mental hurt, or psychological hurt. So these put together will form cruelty. Now again remember, we're talking about going to the court and court requires evidence. So you must have evidence about all these allegations that you're going to have on your spouse. Number three, unsoundness of mind or mental state of a spouse. The spouse may be acting funny, he may be mad, he may be insane, he may be lunatic, He may be behaving like that on and off. He may be on treatment for such psychological disorders, which he had not told you initially at the time of getting married. So, being of unsound mind is a very valid reason for divorce. The other thing is change of faith, conversion from one religion to another. Suppose at the time of marriage, both were Hindus, and subsequently one of the spouse converts to another religion. That is a very, very valid reason for divorce. And not heard of for 7 years is a valid reason for divorce. Suppose the spouse is left and gone, comes back, or not heard of even after 7 years, doesn't come back to you at all. You don't know his whereabouts. He has not spoken to you for 7 years. Nobody knows where he is for the last 7 years. Then law presumes that he must have been dead, even if he's not. The presumption is that in 7 years, if somebody does not contact the family, then they are dead for law. And then, therefore, the law gives you a divorce. Other reason is incurable diseases like leprosy is a reason for divorce. Sexually communicable diseases. If your spouse is suffering from sexually transmittable diseases, communicable diseases, then you have a reason to get divorced so that you will not get infected with the same kind of disease or a different form of sexual disease. So you have a reason for a divorce, and a very valid reason at that. And renunciation of family life. What is renunciation? Renunciation is the spouse leaves you, goes to Himalayas, then comes back and says, "Oh, my dear daughter, how are you? I bless you." He becomes a sannyasi, becomes a guru, a sadguru. So when he renounces family life and resorts to spiritual life, then you have got a very valid reason for divorce. Then another frequent reason for divorce is that my wife is not capable of begetting me a child. So I want to divorce her and marry somebody so that I can have children. Mind you, in the minds of law, according to the law, not having a child or your wife not being able to conceive is not at all a reason for divorce. You cannot apply for divorce stating that she's got a gynecological problem, and therefore she's not able to conceive, and therefore I want a divorce. No, it will not be given. It's not a valid reason for divorce. Now let us come to the other side. The husband is important. Then what happens? The husband is important. Then very, very valid reason for the wife to go for a divorce. Now wait, don't jump telling this is gender equality. How can they tell like this for a female and a male? Ultimately, both of them are not going to get children. So the end result is the same, and therefore, why there is disparity, inequality in law? Whereas if the female is not able to get a child, then I cannot go for a divorce. But when I cannot give her a child, then she can go for divorce. Very valid reason. This reason is the primary reason for awarding of divorce in the case of renunciation, in the case of sexually transmittable diseases, in the case of a person not being found for 7 years. Okay, in all this, the bottom line is that the spouse is unable to give you sexual or biological gratification, which is a fundamental right according to law. A fellow is not heard of for 7 years, naturally can't be there, and he's not even there to give you any sexual gratification. No chance. And if the person is having a sexually transmittable disease, suffering from that, like a leprosy or STD and all that, then naturally you're not going to have a sexual relationship. It's denied to you. Therefore, one is disease, the other is that you're unable to have sexual relationship. That is a valid reason for divorce. In the case of a renunciation of faith, the fellow is not going to come back to family life and is denying you your rights as an individual. or having sexual relationships, and therefore there's a valid reason for divorce. Same manner, the court looks at the man being impotent as one being unable to satisfy his wife's biological needs and therefore denying her a fundamental right as a human being. And that is a very valid reason for divorce. In a sense, whenever there's a denial of right to the other, then you have a reason for divorce. But the bottom line in all this is evidence. Good, acceptable evidence supported by witnesses wherever it is possible. In case of a missing person, you should have lodged a complaint. Police will have to say that they're not able to trace him for the last 7 years. A very valid reason, very valid document, which is good enough for you to go for a divorce. The case of renunciation of faith, more or less the same thing. Or you may have a communication that is in the Himalayas and is not wanting to come back, some kind of evidence there. Or he's come back and is living as a Sadguru, you probably can have a photograph or whatever. In the case of sexual diseases or leprosy, you have medical certificates. In the case of his being impotent, yes, you have medical certificates to prove his impotence. So all these, the bottom line is strong evidence. Even if you have a strong evidence, even if there is a very valid reason for divorce, please remember it may take you years to actually get divorced. Don't be under a dream, wishful thinking that I'll go for divorce, I'll get divorced in the next 2 or 3 months, and then I'm going to get married again. It will never happen. It has never happened. There's no history of it. You're living in a fool's paradise if you think you can divorce your spouse in a jiffy and then get along with a new life. If you have children, then there's more complication, visitation rights, maintenance of children, their future, maintenance of the spouse, her future. And mind you, it is not the background of the wife, familial house or life that is considered as the base. It is the matrimonial house and the matrimonial style of living that is considered as the basis for giving her a maintenance. There are cases wherein decrees or government court orders which say that in some cases they have told that case to case basis it can be decided about maintenance for wife and children. In some cases they say that the wife is capable of taking care of herself because she's earning well and therefore no compensation need to be paid. But several courts have taken the view that as a husband, you have a responsibility to take care of your wife and children, irrespective of whether the wife is earning or not earning. So watch out. Your life is at stake. Your peace of mind is at stake. Your social stigma is possibly going to hurt you. Your family is going to suffer along with you. And you may probably lose part of your assets and your bank balance. So, divorce is not an answer to the problem, but it is going to be causing more pain than the problem itself in most cases. I've seen people who regret having gone for a divorce. Maybe I would have adjusted, I could have adjusted. The parents blame her for rushing to the court. Because once you go to the court, the relationship between the individuals is not going to be the same. Relationship is like a glass sheet. Once there's a crack in it, it'll never go away. And if it breaks, you can't put it together again. The same manner it was, the crack is visible. Therefore, my friends, please be patient. Talk it out. Take your time. And finally, if nothing works out, only then think of divorce. Thinking of divorce should be at the last stage, last resort, not the first one. If you have any issues on divorce or there is a problem between the couples, you're free to write to me, inbox me on the Facebook, or you can write to me at dr.vijayakumar, VIJAYAKUMARKB at gmail.com. Dr.vijayakumarkb at gmail.com. And we'll have a consultation on that. My next video, watch out for this, is going to be on the most dreaded Section 498 and 498A filed by the wife against the husband and her relatives? What are the pros and cons? How is it going to affect you? How is it going to affect your loved ones, your family, your mother, father, sister, brother? We'll discuss and have a brief and have a bird's eye view on section 498 and 498A, the next video. Till then, please think of living a happy married life. Thank you.